Hello and welcome to Your Questions Answered with Father Gruner. I'm John Veneri. In this program, we take the questions that you email to us. Father Gruner answers them, we talk about them, and continue to send us these questions, please, at questions@thefatimacenter.com. Here's one about the Latin Mass. He says, how do I answer my brother and sister when discussing the Latin Tridentine Mass? That's the old Latin Mass. When they just tell me flat out they don't get anything out of it. Their arguments are, there's three. Number one, I can't hear the priest half the time. Number two, when I do hear him, it's a language I don't understand. It might as well be Swahili. And three, it does nothing for me. And then he concludes, my sister sometimes comes with me on special occasions, but my brother just says no.
So, you have 3 children and you have many different social engagements. You must run into this question yourself, John, in socially speaking. Yes,
I do, and I think a number of us do. And what I have found with something like this, and I don't want to discourage this this man because clearly he's of good intent, but it's really difficult to get someone interested in something that they're not interested in, especially in regard to something religious, because they kind of have the sense, well, you're invading my space. You know. Now, I'm not saying don't try to get them to the Mass, but rather than just say come to the old Mass, one of the things you might want to do is read up on the true Mass yourself, so that you can actually bring some explanation of the beauties of the old Mass and the majesty of the old Mass. When they say I don't get anything out of it and it doesn't do anything for me. When I was 7 years old, I heard Bach's Ninth Symphony. It didn't do anything for me because I knew nothing about music back then. I recently heard Bach's Ninth Symphony at the Buffalo Philharmonic, and it just sent me to the treetops because I know about it. Yeah. I know what's going on. I know what Bach was. Beethoven. Did I say Bach? Yeah. Should have been Beethoven. Beethoven's Ninth. And you don't get anything out of a trip to Europe unless you know something about Europe. You don't get anything out of the more you know about history, then you get something out of a documentary on the Civil War, that type of thing. So you have to bring something to it.
Well, that's certainly true, but I think the first thing they have to bring to it is the Catholic faith.
Yes.
So if a person, I understand, we're talking about a question I don't know, and and secondly, and he's referring to a brother and a sister that I still don't know even further. So my first thing is that what is it they're expecting, and I guess more importantly is, do they want to save their soul or not? Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing is, if they have the Catholic faith, it's not a question of whether they feel better about it. Often people do feel better about it, but maybe these people don't feel about it. God has his different graces and different attractions to different souls. There are 3 things St. Thomas tells us about God, which are all, God being one and simple, they're all there. This absolute goodness, absolute beauty, absolute truth. Now, some people are more attracted by beauty, some people are more attracted by truth, some people are more attracted by goodness. We only, because we're finite beings, we can't all be exactly the same, and we don't have the exact same level of appreciation of the infinite good, beauty, or truth. So I don't know what they're looking for. So, but there is goodness there. There's truth there. There's beauty there. If they're interested in truth, is what I'm more interested. I'm certainly appreciate goodness and beauty, but truth is what I suppose is, shall we say, the primary attraction for me. And one thing is, by having the Mass in Latin, it's first of all you don't have heresies is creeping in, and that's a real benefit, because if people are confused, it's in part because they're worshiping wrong. If they properly understood their worship, they wouldn't be confused. A lot of Catholics today are confused, and
that's because their one contact with the faith for most people is Sunday Mass, and if it's this new liturgy that they've got, they're not really getting the Catholic faith from that. They're getting something new.
Well, at very least, we can say the new Mass is equivocal. That is, it can be understood in more than one sense. We have the example of the Second Canon, in which the Anglicans in England have been saying for years the Second Canon in an Anglican Protestant sense, not High Anglican, and they can say it in good conscience because it can be taken that way.
Yes, and one of the things too we could suggest to this gentleman is, just a gentle reminder that this Latin Mass, okay, well, you say you don't get anything out of it, But this is the Mass that nurtured St. Francis of Assisi.
Yeah.
This is the Mass that nurtured St. Teresa the Little Flower.
Yeah.
This is the Mass that sustained
the martyrs.
Maximilian Kolbe in the
Yeah.
concentration camps.
Yeah.
It's the Mass that sustained Cardinal Manzenti through
Yeah.
all the persecution. You know, so bring to the person that if you don't get anything out of it, well, maybe the fault is not with the Mass.
Yes.
Maybe there's something that I'm lacking.
Yes.
And you have to be gentle the way you say that to someone, but point out that this was the Mass that made the saints.
Yes.
throughout the history of the Church.
I still remember my experience being in St. Mary Major in the early 70s, and I had just gone to the new Mass. I wasn't a priest yet, and I had gone to the new Mass for my daily Mass. And I heard the bell ring from the sacristy, which indicated another priest was going to say Mass. I looked at my watch, and I realized I had time before I went to another class, and so I decided to follow the priest to where he was going to say Mass at the side altar. Well, so lo and behold, he said the Tridentine Mass, and that was very interesting because I just seen the Novus Ordo Mass right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
It was fresh in my memory, in case I had forgotten anything, and I just saw then the Tridentine Mass, and the comparison between them, just for the beauty of the ceremonies, it was day and night.
Well,
And the first one was done, shall we say, respectfully,
right.
but it had nothing on the Tridentine Mass is much more beautiful.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the things a person can do who's at least, who has relatives and friends who are at least open to the discussion
Yes.
about it is learn about the Mass yourself.
Yes.
I have this book here. Now, it's called The Incredible Catholic Mass, and it goes through all the various aspects of the Mass. I've not read this book, but people who I respect have read this and said it's been very helpful. So that when you can explain...
Who's it by?
It's called The Incredible Catholic Mass. That's the name Tom Nelson gave it, by the way. It's still in print from Tan, although the new one has a different cover. An Explanation of the Mass by Father Martin von Kochen, Cochen. And I think you have it. And,
in our catalog.
Oh, yeah. So, yes, I think you have it in the catalog. And you can write to us at questions@thefatimacenter.com if you want to get hold of it. But the thing is we need to be prepared to talk about the Mass as the representation of Calvary. That when we are at Mass, we are at the foot of the cross with our Blessed Mother and St. John and the women, and that the Tridentine Mass is the expression of Calvary represented, because that's how it grew in the devotion of the centuries, whereas the new Mass was actually made to play down the aspect of sacrifice because it was designed for the new ecumenical orientation to please Protestants.
I think the other thing about being in Latin is, I remember Father Cherokee saying that, well, he's speaking Latin because he's speaking to God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so the other thing is that we haven't even talked about a missal, but a missal, obviously St. Pius X and other popes have recommended praying the Mass for the lay people, with the missal, so they know where they are and they can follow it in their own language. At the same time, they're participating interiorly with their sentiments of adoration and thanksgiving and petition and praise, of course. So it's not about whether they can hear it or not. It's about whether they're attending, participating in the spirit of prayer, in the spirit of faith. And yes, if they knew what I remember reading these leaflets saying that for someone who says they don't get anything out of Mass, the benefits of going to Mass, especially daily Mass, all sorts of things. They may not feel anything, but they have all sorts of protections. I see little things happening, just I'm looking for something and it's almost like falls in my lap without even looking for it. So I want to thank you very much. But at other times, if you're not so prayerful, you're searching for something for hours or days. Not to say that I always find everything right away, but little touches. But these are benefits that you receive for attending Mass. The protection that we have, besides the protection, the graces. It's much easier to not be tempted, to avoid temptation, or to reject it if it comes to you and so forth, than if you're living without the Mass.
And what he said about it's in Latin. I don't understand it. That's why it's good to learn about the Mass itself, because all of those things are there for a reason.
Yes.
The Latin is there. Two of the reasons is, first of all, the dead tongue, the foreign tongue, adds a sense of mystery.
Well, it's dead because it doesn't change also. All languages today, all the vernaculars change.
Yes.
So what is in this generation, you have to change for the next generation.
Yeah.
Because
it's like Father Hess used to say, in the 1890s they called it the gay 90s.
Yeah.
In the 1990s they call it the gay 90s, and it means two very different things.
Yes.
So the language changes, but Latin doesn't.
Yes.
So not only does it add to the sense of mystery, but also it preserves the prayers and the doctrine in the Mass. It kind of has it in a kind of deep freeze, really, in a good sense, that no heresy can creep in. And that, if you read about the Mass, especially prior to Vatican II, they will say this is the reason why, for uniformity, and also to keep bad ideas from the liturgy.
From creeping into different ideas, getting in there that are against the faith. I remember being in Rome, this was another occasion, but it was 1965, and it was at Easter time, and I knew exactly where I was in the Mass because it's the same Mass that was in my parish church. Mm-hmm. So, and there were people there. I could tell. I mean, there were Germans and there were French and there were Italians, but we all felt at home, even though we didn't speak the same language as the person beside us. We all knew the Mass. We all knew we were worshiping God in the universal church, and that universality became very obvious, at least to me, just reflecting upon it.
The unity of worship. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, we're on the topic of the Mass. This could go on for quite a while because there's so much to say. But I hope we've at least started to answer your question. And if you want more, want to know more, just please send us another email: questions@thefatimacenter.com. So that concludes this program, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.